Iowa or Bama. It doesn't often come down to those schools not on the field or in recruiting, but it does potentially this weekend, this coming week. Kadyn Proctor coming off a visit to Iowa City, and those are his final two schools. We'll get to that in a moment. My thoughts on where he may be leaning right now, my guess, my prediction as to where he's going to commit. I think it will be right around the corner. I don't think this is going to be dragged out very long. First, I want to remind you to check out Under the Kitchen. Boy, Randy Engel doing tremendous work down in Mitchellville. Great gift ideas, original Hawkeye prints. He's teamed up with a number of athletes, former athletes, and just great stuff down at Under the Kitchen. Check it out on Facebook, Under the Kitchen on Facebook for original Hawkeye art. And be sure to visit goascentnutrition.com because Ascent Nutrition has got a great deal going on right now. Use the code Hawkeyes to receive 10% off your order of any of their products, whether it's algae oil, DHA, it's pine pollen. Help your physical health, your mental health, cardiovascular health, hormonal health, and much, much more. And they've also got organic coffee, which is smooth, clean, and great tasting. Again, use the code Hawkeyes at checkout. GoAscentNutrition.com, and you're helping this channel when you do so. So, Kadyn Proctor, Alabama or Iowa? Again, what a rare conversation for us to break down anything. To have Iowa and Alabama in the conversation as the final two or the top two for, again, recruiting or for a game. Just very rare. I don't know the last time Iowa played Alabama on the football field. But obviously there is a connection between Nick Saban and Kirk Ferentz. Those two guys coached together for a brief stint in the NFL. But Kadyn Proctor, a five-star kid, top 10 by, I think, every metric, top 5 in the country overall for 2023 by a lot of websites. He did announce this past week, maybe week prior, I think maybe 2 weeks or almost 2 weeks removed from that announcement, that he is going to make his selection between Iowa and Alabama. Now, he did visit Alabama just recently, and following that visit, all right, that's when he trimmed down his list to either Iowa or Alabama. Now, initially, Kadyn Proctor had announced his official visits, and Iowa was not included in those official visits. Oregon was an official visit, Penn State, Alabama, Arkansas State, a number of schools there. Now, people started to panic on the Iowa side of things because he was not visiting Iowa City. However, we understand that Kadyn Proctor had been to Iowa City a number of times. I saw some estimations on social media that he visited Iowa City approximately 12 times on unofficial visits. So why do you need to take that official visit? It's a bit of a formality. So what happens is he ends up going to Alabama, visiting the Crimson Tide. Following that visit, he cancels the rest of his visit, which included a September visit to Penn State, and says, I'm going to visit Iowa the weekend of the 24th, 25th. So Iowa fans rejoicing over that because it just made people feel better, the fact that he was coming on an official visit. I don't know that really makes a big impact, and I'll explain why. But it does come down to either Alabama or Iowa. Now, here's my line of thinking. I'm going to give you the top 4 possibilities as to where Proctor's leaning, what his decision-making could mean in this discussion between either Alabama or Iowa. So here, I'll go in order of least likely to what I believe to be most likely. So my least likely scenario with Kadyn Proctor is that he doesn't know. He genuinely did not know heading into this visit. He knows he liked Alabama. He knows he likes Iowa. And so it's a legitimate top 2. He wanted to go to Iowa this weekend for one more look. I don't think that's the case. Again, he's been to Iowa like 11 or 12 times already. Does he really need to go back for a 12th or 13th visit to know the differences between Iowa and Alabama? Those two programs so different. So I don't think that's the case. That would be my least likely of the 4 possibilities or scenarios present here with Kadyn Proctor. Now, my third, all right, so this is my third most likely scenario, is that he's decided on Alabama. Now, I could see this because Proctor coming off a visit to Tuscaloosa, perhaps they sold him, and out of respect for Iowa, he wants to leave Iowa in his top 2. They're his hometown school. One of his best friends, Xavier Wampa, is a Hawkeye, and he's decided to come to Iowa on an official visit to give his regards to Kirk Ferentz, George Barnett, Brian Ferentz, and the coaching staff, but tell them respectfully, sorry, coaches, I'm going to end up being a member of the Crimson Tide. That's possible. Again, I don't think that's the most likely scenario, but I think it's a possibility. Second most likely scenario, he's leaning Iowa, but needs that additional reassurance. So I have no doubt that he probably liked Alabama. I believe they legitimately are the top two schools. I don't think Kadyn Proctor is just throwing out one random school to pair with the school he's already decided on. I do believe these are his top two. I think he could be leaning towards Iowa, but he just needs that extra reassurance. Wants to go back one more time just kind of give himself reassurance that that's the right choice. And I think that's possible. Now, the number one scenario would be that he is a Hawkeye. And I believe that to be the case. I think he's a Hawkeye. That's my prediction. I think he's going to commit to Iowa. I think we're going to hear an announcement in the coming days. I have no intel, no inside information on this, but I do believe just how all this worked out. I do think that he is going to be a Hawkeye. And even if that hasn't been decided yet, I think it has. That's my guess. I think it has been decided. But even if it hasn't been decided yet, my number two is a possibility as well, that he was already leaning towards Iowa. Not a done deal, but he's leaning towards Iowa. If Iowa can nail down Kadyn Proctor, it'd be the highest rated recruit in Iowa history. I don't think it's even really close. He's a five-star guy, would be a national storyline. It would certainly give Iowa some extra leverage. Yes, he's a central Iowa kid, but who cares? He's a top five guy, number one offensive tackle in the country. He's like 6'8", 335 pounds. He's a mammoth. All right. If he comes to Iowa, it'd be the biggest recruiting win of Kirk Ferentz's time here. I mean, I think that's clear. Even though he's an offensive lineman, I get that quarterback would be, if you can get a five-star quarterback, that'd probably trump getting a five-star offensive lineman. But boy, you nail down Kadyn Proctor. It just gives you great recruiting momentum. And I think he plays from day one. I think he plays in 2023 and jumps to the pros 3 years later. So we'll see. He's coming off the visit to Iowa City. I think he's a Hawkeye, but we'll have to wait and see. Keep it locked right here, because as soon as we get an announcement from Kadyn Proctor, we will be with you right here to react. Tentatively, we're planning on a live show, an episode of Hawkeye Hangout. So stick right here, turn notifications on here at From the Hawkeye of the Storm for the latest around Hawkeye Nation.